Good morning, folks. How are we all this morning? I hope we're all good. Nice to see you all there. I'll just get Facebook on board and then we'll get the day's stooge in. Now, David, of course, is playing the person in the supermarket who's seen the headlines and nothing else. So, well, this is not good. For some reason, I'm not getting bloody Facebook on board. Well, it's supposed to be on board. I'll check again in a minute or so. Anyway, morning. It's Indie Truck Davy out the truck and at home in his office in Salisbury, North Lanarkshire, where it is a bright, sunny, beautiful day, 5 degrees. And that's the weather in Salisbury, North Lanarkshire. You want to know what the weather's like where you are? Look at your own bloody windy. Right, I'll bring the other one in and we'll get into it in a minute once I see if I can get Facebook on board. We'll get a minute to update. Morning, David.
Morning. I'm just asking, where do you keep your baked beans?
In the cupboard, you banger.
No, it's supermarket, you stupid wazzock.
I don't keep my baked beans in the supermarket. I keep them in the cupboard after I buy them. Right, anyway, let's see, I'll get another go at getting Facebook on board. It doesn't seem to have streamed to Facebook this morning for some reason.
I know, but strange that, because it works so easily any other times apart from when you're trying to do stuff like that.
No, it's showing it as live, but it's coming up as YouTube and no Facebook.
Yeah.
Let's see, we'll try again. Anyway, got some cracking headlines for you today. No, I'm going to have to just put it up after the programme. This happens a few times with this bloody restream on Facebook. It's showing as streaming to Facebook, but I'm afraid we're just going to have to go on without it this morning, David. So, first up this morning, we've got the Daily Record. I don't put it up, David. I don't put up the Record or the Sun. Anyway, they're going on a celebrity type story, and it's anger on BBC soap. BBC.
Yeah.
Anger as BBC scrap Scotch soap sold down the river. What do you think that's about?
River City. In actual fact, it's like Libby was on talking about last night, one of the actresses that used to be in River City, right? And it's a shame because a lot of people actually follow it, right? And BBC Scotland BBC don't actually put much money into Scotland for making programmes, right? So, yeah, again, the people of Scotland are paying a licence fee. What are they getting for a licence fee? Well, as far as I can see, it's propaganda. That's it. End story.
To be honest with you, David, the people in Scotland are no paying a bloody licence fee. I'm quite proud of them, actually. When it comes to no paying a licence fee, Scotland is the nation where the least people pay the licence fee.
Yeah.
They just say, bugger it, I'm not paying for propaganda, you know?
Yeah.
And, of course, the other side of it is, of course, people are poor.
Yeah, but plus, you've got to look at older people. Older people tend to be more honest. They don't like breaking the law. They don't like to be seen to be breaking the law. So you actually talk to one of them about not paying their licence fee. They go, "Oh no, can't do that. That'd be breaking the law."
Right, enough. I'm not here for a diatribe on it. No here for a diatribe on it. It's a headline programme. We don't have time for it, David. Okay. Discipline, dear boy. Discipline.
The word you're looking for is diatribe.
Anyway, discipline, dear boy. Discipline. Next up's the scum. And what's the scum go for as a day? It goes in the same story. Telly soap sensation. Cry me a river. Beeb pull plug on show after 23 years. So this thing's been going on for 23 years. I've never seen it. Never seen a single episode.
What they'll probably do is they'll probably do another current affairs programme where they can get more stuff in to actually make sure that people stay as part of the union and better together and all that shite, right? There you go. That's where the money is going to go.
Well, anyway, apparently, according to what I heard yesterday, they're going to make more dramas on us, David, apparently. That's what's going to replace it. Anyway, next up, we've got the Scotsman. We'll start going to serious headlines now. So I'll put it up, and the Scotsman has fears welfare reforms will be severe blow to Scots budget. SNP ministers warning over a devastating impact of measures. And this is, of course, Scotland's benefits minister. So, what do you make of that for a headline, David?
Well, David, I've been waiting for this one for days and days now, and it's like I should have watched the debate in the House of Commons, but it wasn't a debate. It was like, here it is. This is what it is. It's what you're going to get. Work shall set you free, it says above Auschwitz, right? What's the German for it, David? Was it actually a German phrase for it?
Arbeit macht sie frei.
Yeah.
Arbeit macht sie frei.
To be honest with you, it's like, I've got to say, it's not work that sets people free. It's how much money they're allowed to actually take part in society, right? End of story. That's it. And what's going to happen is, as you correctly pointed out, there was a robot that was started to work in its workplace in Germany. Imagine when all these people are trying to get a job and they're all being done by robots.
Anyway, let's move on because I don't have time for this. Let's move on. Next up's the National. Now, the National's got a few headlines. America's genocide. Rector of Scottish University slams US as it backs deadly Israel strikes on Gaza. More than 400 people killed, but Labour say, no, we won't ban arms sales.
Yeah.
And the main headline, an act of cruelty. Corbyn, disgraceful disability benefit cuts will cost lives. Flynn, voters in Scotland will not forgive Labour. Meanwhile, Sarwar says this is not austerity.
Note to self, I must drop off English Oxford dictionary off to Mr. Sarwar. Just let him look up the word austerity and see what actually is meant by austerity. And he'll probably find that everything that we're seeing at the moment is austerity.
Of course it is. It's on stilts, actually. It's going beyond austerity.
Yeah.
And what we're actually seeing is the balancing of books which don't need balancing on the back of the very poorest. What we're seeing is punching down. What we're seeing is eugenics at work. And the early predictions is that between 1 and 1.2 million people will lose between £4,000 and £6,000 a year. Putting people straight on to a situation where they're living in extreme poverty. We find a lot of these people, because the cost of living crisis, are already using food banks and things like that. And this isn't just going to be austerity.
You know, they're talking about taking $5 billion out of the pockets of people with disability, people on benefits, all the rest of it, right? And this will normalise the British economy by doing this. No.
Well, anyway, it's pretty horrendous, I have to say.
The amount of money that the rich are getting away with in terms of tax, that's not been touched. They're relying on these rich buggers who could pay more tax, could pay a decent amount of tax, and leave the people on benefits alone.
Right, we can go into deeper tomorrow, David, when we've got an hour to get into it, because we'll have time to go through the figures for then. Anyway, next up we have the Express, and they go in a story which is local to my area. But I'll put it up, and we'll see what you think, David. What do you think this is about? Reasonable precautions could have prevented 3 deaths in Scots hospitals. Sheriff ruled newborn babies did not need to die. Any idea what this story is about?
On this one, no. I'm sorry, I do not have an idea on that one.
Well, what the sheriff is...
Especially the fact that it's Daily Express, and you think to yourself, they're looking at something to have a go at Scotland again, aren't they? Yeah?
No, this is a true story of a fatal... you know, when a baby dies, they have a public inquiry into it every time. Anyway, the sheriff has ruled that these 3 babies would not have died with reasonable precautions. What were the precautions the sheriff was talking about? They weren't the medical interventions. Apparently, it had to do with communication and data sharing on women who are approaching going into labour and giving birth. Now, I don't know much about how these babies died and what medical condition seen them die, but apparently it would have been preventable if communications had been better and if data collection had been better. That's the actual findings of the sheriff, which sort of threw me. You know,
I'm yet again, after you've told me that, I'm none the wiser.
I mean, here we have a judge who's a non-medical professional ruling that if they kept better records, these kids would have survived.
You know something? I really, really don't know what records the judge could be talking about. You get into you get into the labour suite where your wife is having a baby. I've been there a couple of times before, and it's like, honestly, information. What information?
Well, anyway, as I say, that was the judge's findings and recommendations after this inquiry. Had to deal with more data.
Yeah, again, the use of a head could actually could be written better to tell you more of what was missing.
Well, as I say, it will be in the body exclusively. I don't have time to get into that.
Yeah, okay, all right.
Right, next up we have the Times. What's the Times got for us today? Putin keeps ceasefire hopes on a knife edge.
It's not funny, and yet it is funny. Putin doesn't want there to be a ceasefire, right? Honestly, he'll play the game, and he'll see.
Well, the Telegraph got a much more honest approach to it, but we'll get to that in a minute, David. I want to go into this byline for a minute. Benefit traps have reaped terrible costs, says Starmer.
Benefit trap has reaped terrible cost, says Starmer. I don't know what benefit trap he's on about. If he's on about the actual thing that Blair brought in, which was the amount of money that was the responsibility for paying for people's wages, was taken off the employer and put on the taxpayer, right? That is a benefits trap. Of course it is, right? Just wants putting back on the employer again. Are you going to do that?
Very, very few people really understood what it was they were doing.
Yeah.
I was shouting about it at the time. They were transferring responsibility for the well-being of the people from the employer to the taxpayer. Mm-hmm. Anyway, let's move on, shall we? As time is of the essence. Next up, we have the Telegraph. I'll put it up, and as I say, this is a much more honest approach to what happened with Trump's call yesterday with Putin. Putin rejects Trump's ceasefire. Basically, Putin put Trump in his place. Bugger off, it'll be in my terms, no yours.
To be honest,
there's not really much more to say about that.
Some of the stuff I've heard of Trump over the past few days, I've just got myself, well, to be honest with you, he's a stupid old bastard.
I think he's... even the American press are starting to look at it and say, this guy's suffering from dementia, his cognitive abilities are going down rapid. Which is interesting because at this point, at this age, at 78, his father had rapid onset dementia.
Yeah.
And his mind was gone within a
Yeah.
year. And his life was over quite quickly after that. Now, the bylines here are quite funny. Badenoch, Farage is a reality TV star. He's not fit to run your life.
Yeah.
Well, for Badenoch, that's poor Farage. And self-ID rules give trans access into... Sorry, self-ID rules giving trans access to female loos may be reviewed. Now, do you think they're talking about Scotland there, or do you think they're talking about UK?
It doesn't matter, right? See this one, right? Rather than a newspaper putting out an article talking about that, what they should do is they should put, here's the answer, right? And we'll either laugh at it or we'll go, right, we'll adopt that, right? End of the day, I'm sick of it. I really am.
Aye, we're all sick of it, David, but I'll ask you a specific question. Do you think they're speaking about Scottish legislation or UK legislation?
They're actually talking about both, I believe.
No, because the Scottish legislation didn't make it onto statute books. They're talking about UK legislation.
Scotland did put forth a solution, right?
It was vetoed by a Section 35 order.
I know that.
Didn't they matter? That was David. You have to start paying more attention.
Start paying attention, fucking cheeky twat. Right, seriously.
I asked a specific question.
Doesn't matter. Scotland did.
It does,
right? And as far as this woman trans rights and all this stuff, right? Seriously, it just needs for somebody to say, right, this is what we're going to do. End of story. Rather than keeping it going over and over.
That was not the question, David. When I said you need to pay attention, I asked a specific question. The specific answer was, it's UK legislation. That's all I wanted. So that our viewers knew it wasn't Scottish legislation they were talking about.
This, but you go, well, you pay attention. I fucking do pay attention, you cheeky twat.
I asked a specific question. I was looking for a specific answer.
Leave this one alone. Go the next one.
Well, as I say, if I ask you a question, go and give me the answer.
Right.
No something else.
Okay, right.
Oh, I've upset you. I do apologise, dear boy. No, the point of me asking that question, David, was so that the viewers understood this wasn't a Scottish-specific story. It was a UK-wide specific story.
That. Right.
Okay. Right, next up we have the Herald. What's the Herald got for us this morning? Unfit homes law slammed for missing private tenants.
It's part of the law that states that the actual landlord has to deal with repairs to tenanted property, right?
It is, yeah. And it's a Scottish-specific story.
The Unfit Homes Law is slammed for missing private tenants. What that actually means, it's kind of vague, right? Are they saying that the private tenants are not going in for that because they're paying money for it, or what? What are we actually saying? Are we saying that people are going?
Well, what they're saying is the proposed legislation from Holyrood to battle damp and the homes that are unfit for human habitation is only aimed at social landlords and isn't aimed at private landlords. But it's proposed legislation, so it's not hit the floor of the chamber yet. It can be tweaked.
Yeah.
It's actually to public consultation at this point in time. You know what I mean? So it's a proposed law, and at this point in time, it's not written completely, but in its current form as a draft white paper. The proposed legislation only targets, when it comes to keeping houses dry and habitable, it's only targeting apparently social landlords at this point.
Generally, I look at things like that, and I look at my own family experience, and you walk into a rented property, maybe council property, right? Means that the council you'll be in there just for a few weeks, and then the council will come in and they'll do a lot of the repairs whilst you're in, right?
Aye.
Which, to be honest with you, that's fine. That's social landlords. Private landlords, you go into a house and it's absolutely amazing. You see the quality of the finish and all the rest of it, because you're paying for it. You're paying 500 quid for a 2-bedroom house. That's it. You know, each month, 600 quid even.
Give me a wee second. It was something that's of interest to me on why this law might have been written that way initially. And it is because I believe that most of the rented accommodation in Scotland is still social housing.
Yeah.
And the social housing stock for rent in Scotland at this point in time is still 53% of rented accommodation in Scotland is still social housing. I had a fair idea. I thought it was about 60%, but what they're telling me in the stats that's just been popped up there by AI,
it's because they stopped, the SNP stopped the situation where you could buy the council house you were sitting in.
Well, anyway, 23% of the housing stock that's rented here in Scotland is private landlords.
Yeah.
So 53% still social. All right. Now, let's move on to the Daily Fail. And we'll see what the Daily Fail's got for us today, shall we? What direction is this one off on? Teen plotted biggest gun massacre of the century. Triple killer targeted primary school.
Fuck's sake.
So, crime story. It's actually not a new crime story, David, but I've covered it before. And this is the story of a teenage killer called Nicholas Prosper down in England, who killed his family and was apprehended heading towards his old primary school, tooled up with a gun, a knife, and I think it was a crossbow. And he intended to make himself the most notorious killer.
This is the one that killed his partner and his mother and all the rest of it with the crossbow.
No, that's a different one.
Different one, is it? Right.
Aye, this teenager he set out with the ambition to become the most notorious murderer in the UK. He was heading for notoriety, and the idea that his memory is such a bloody memory would live on forever. Anyway, he was apprehended on his way to his old primary school to carry out a massacre.
I tend not to read stuff like that because at the end of the day, my wife is a fan of all that. There's been a murder type programs, and I don't like that type of program. So
well, I tend not to get involved in crime stories either. The people here will tell you that. What I tend to do is just ignore the crime stories. But when it is a crime story, it's the headline. I'm still going to know what it's about, you know.
As far as I'm concerned, somebody that commits a crime, kills somebody, that can be considered an amateur against what the government of Westminster have done for the past so many decades.
Right, let's move on. Next up, we have the Metro. We'll put it up. Right, it's got rebels forced a back down on PIP crackdown.
Well, PIP is a phrase that we hear for England. Well, England and Wales, right? Personal independence payment. Nowadays, if it's through the Scottish the Department of Work and Pensions, it's the disability living allowance, right? However, that is the rebels within Labour that are basically the backbenchers have created a bit of a crackdown on PIP reduction in England. And that's all I can say. Whether or not it'll do anything, I don't know.
Well, the other thing we've got to look at is, will it affect Scotland? It will affect the Barnett formula. Will the Scottish Government choose to mitigate it?
Yeah.
That remains to be seen.
Yeah, again,
the other thing is,
we've got a situation whereby, yet again, something happens with Westminster, and the Scottish Parliament has to mitigate. And which mitigation are we going to see? Your comment this morning was quite right. It shows people that the Scottish government are on the ball. They're looking after people and all the rest of it. But there's got to come a point when you go, can't mitigate anymore. Don't have it. Pockets are empty. You know?
well, as I say, could this one be mitigated only with tax rises?
Yes, that's right.
And I think it's something that would need to be a clever government. When this was announced, would then have made an announcement in the Parliament, and hopefully they'll do it in the next couple of days to see they're going to a public consultation to see whether this should be mitigated or not, because it will involve tax rises, and let the public decide whether to mitigate it or not.
I don't think it should be mitigated, and I am one of the people that's going to be directly affected with it when it hits Scotland. Seriously.
Well, as I say, in this particular circumstance, because we're getting to the point where there is nothing left in the kitty without further tax rises, a clever government will go to a consultation with the people and ask them if they want them to mitigate it, and explain to them what's going to have to happen in order to mitigate it.
I think the easiest way out of all is you don't mitigate it. You say, look, there's not the money to do it, and the answer is independence. And we get John Swinney force him to put forward an independence act for the next Parliament. Simple as that.
No, it don't matter if he does that for a Holyrood election, it just will be ignored.
Doesn't matter.
It's a Westminster election he needs to aim for.
I know, but at the same time, if we can actually gauge the people of Scotland at that time, we know fine well. A couple of years later, we've got the Westminster one. We go, right, we're going.
But anyway, David, let's cut this a bit short because it's premature on that one actually, and the reason why it's premature is because there's going to be a vote on it. Now, what the Labour Party have done is they've kicked the vote into the long grass to May to try and give them a bit more time to convince their backbenchers not to rebel. So by the time this comes to a vote in May, the anger might have disappeared and the people might have got used to the idea it's going to happen. I think that's the way they're playing it, to be honest.
Well, looking at it, you've got to say to yourself, what's happened to the souls of all these Labour MPs that used to be attacking the Conservatives left, right and centre, and all of a sudden they're doing stuff that the Conservative Party would have been quite proud of.
Hey. Doug, I think people have to realise that this isn't a Labour Party they're voting for. There hasn't been a left of centre Labour Party since Corbyn. You go back to Tony Blair, he moved them to the centre. Yeah. Corbyn attempted to move them back to the left, he had to be destroyed. The state didn't want it.
Yeah.
And then we're back on a move to the centre, to the right of centre, as they play, as been pointed out in the news actually yesterday, as they play to Farage and his immigration carry on, as they play to the Tories tune on benefit cuts and economic theory, neoliberalism. So we haven't had a Labour Party since Tony Blair moved the left of centre Labour Party to the middle ground, and now they have moved to the right. There's no argument in that anymore. When you're pissing down in the least of us, you're right of centre.
Yeah. Yeah.
There is no argument about it. There is no Labour Party anymore. What this mob stand for? They stand for whatever the establishment and their sponsors, their corporate sponsors tell them to fucking stand for. Simple as that. Right, let's move on. Next up, the very last one of today is the Star. And let's hope the Stars get something to put a smile on our faces. So let's see what the Stars got today. Vive la France. Trumpy taking a liberty. So give us our statue back. Yeah, what do you make of that, David?
Yeah,
The
I mean,
French want the Statue of Liberty back. And what
I
they're
saw an argument on that the other day there, right, where certain people in America were going, well, France is there because, well, we took part in the Second World War and all the rest of it, right? And somebody came back with, well, what about before that? Do you realise it was France that helped you out back the War of Independence and all the rest of it, right? Do you realise it was France that gave the Statue of Liberty to America and all the rest of it, right? And that they've been good partners all the way along. And
anyway, what France is saying is they want their statue back because Trump doesn't understand the meaning of the statue. Liberty and justice. Trump doesn't understand it.
Yeah.
So, of course, it's just a comedy headline that's been picked up in the Star on a poll that was done in France.
The one that I heard the other day there was Trump getting interviewed, right? And it was on about daylight savings time, they call it, because we're coming up that time of the year. We put the clocks forward or put it back, I remember, right? And he was on about if your grandmother's in hospital and she's going to die in an hour's time, and all of a sudden they put the clocks forward, it's like, that's it, she's already dead. And you think to yourself, what the hell?
I think the argument that is very.
You start looking at it and you go, is it possible somebody's made this up on the AI? Must have done. But nobody's that stupid. Nobody is that stupid. But some of the stuff that he has said in the past. I mean, do you remember him talking about the
I know, David.
He was talking about injecting yourself with bleach, right? And you went, what do you think would happen if you injected yourself with bleach? Fuck's sake.
Hey, I don't know what that's going to do with reacting to that headline.
It's trouble.
But it's going to do your premise of coming on this programme is for a reaction to the headlines. No whole preamble behind it. I've only got 30 minutes for brand out. We're 3 minutes out.
You waste a lot of time on that blooming gender recognition stuff.
I didn't waste any time on it. In fact, all the time's been wasted on your preamble because I'm asking you about headlines.
Yes, you did.
Me, I had ranted all the way through this show.
Yes, you did. Anyway, right.
Well, David,
what?
now, before we finish this one off, right, so you've seen these headlines for the first time today. If you were walking by the newsstand in the supermarket, what would you have thought?
No, you make your mind up on what you see. Simple as that, right? It's only when you actually look at the article might be nothing to do with what the headline is. And we've seen that a fair few times in the past, where you say to people, right, you put up a comment before an article, right? What happens is people read what's on the article, on the headline that's on the article. They don't read your words.
Now, based on that premise, David, I want to ask you what you thought of today's headlines. Know the premise behind the idea of doing this particular section, this particular show you eat once a week. I'm talking about you're in the supermarket, you've spotted these headlines. That is the premise behind what we're doing. What's your opinion this morning?
The only one that I'd have been least bit interested in was the fact that attacking people on benefits and disabled. And basically, we've seen a preamble in that over the past couple of weeks.
Now, do you think that the headlines this morning would give the impression that people were being attacked and their benefits were being cut?
Yes. Yes.
So you think that's fair enough for the rags of day then?
And the fact that the backbenchers are looking to attack the government on.
As I say, David, it's just the premise that we do this on. You're in the supermarket, you've seen the headlines. Your impression from the headlines today would be that the government are attacking people's income.
Yes, and the MPs within that actually make up the government are starting to go, no, this is wrong.
And the possibility of a rebellion then. So that's your impression.
Yes.
People are being attacked and the possibility of a parliamentary rebellion. That's your opinion of what the headlines are telling you.
Without reading without reading the article.
That's it. As I say, to bring it to the premise of why we're doing this for 2 years in the morning, is that you've wandered into the supermarket and you've seen the headlines, and your impression from the headlines this morning is people's incomes are being attacked and there could be a backbench revolt. That's it, aye.
Yeah.
Good. I'm glad we've narrowed that down, folks. I hope that was helpful, because the premise behind this is you're walking through a supermarket, you see headlines, what's the impression you're getting for the headlines rather than what you would know if you read the articles. Okay. So that's it for this morning, folks. I'll away and schedule tomorrow morning. You'll get 2 doses of David and I, the Two Davies of Mora. You'll get me in the morning, you get David and I in the afternoon, where we will be talking about what's really happening. And we'll be a lot more numbers crunched on what's going on with the benefit changes or changes to the welfare system. So we'll definitely be covering that tomorrow afternoon in more depth. So I hope you found this morning's programme interesting and informative. And I'll see you all tomorrow at 10:30. Don't be late, you're on the naughty step. And David will be back tomorrow afternoon for Two Davies. So I just leaves one thing left to say, David.
Bye, guys. And
bye, David.
Independence. Don't forget that.
Right, catch you later, guys. Eyes on the prize.